My name is Daisy, and I am currently one of the marine animal specialists at SeaLife Aquarium on the Sunshine Coast in sunny Queensland in Australia.
Hello, I'm John Rossi. I'm a touring drummer with a passion for animal conservation. When I'm on the road, I spend as much time as possible visiting zoos, aquariums, and conservation organizations. Now, I want to share those places with you. I'll be talking to keepers, vets, conservationists, anyone who can help me in my mission of connecting my people to animals through their people. Join me on my Rossifari. Hello, 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 and welcome back to a very special season of the Rossifari podcast. And by that, I don't mean like I'm starting a new season of the Rossifari podcast, because I'm not. We are still here in season 4, living life and loving said life. But for the next week, and I know I've talked about this a little bit, but just in case you don't know, we are going to be doing an amazing bit of collaboration with my friends Daisy and Tess, who are both trainers and keepers in Australia and who are co-hosts of the podcast Trainer Talks and Tales. It is exactly what it sounds like. It is an amazing podcast where they talk about training and just life in zoos and aquariums. And I am a big fan of the podcast. And because of that, I reached out to Daisy initially and then connected with both of these incredible humans and talked about teaming up. And it turns out that they listen to Rossifari and we have a big old love fest, and we're all excited to actually be friends now and to be bringing you a week of amazing content. So real quick breakdown here. Today is Tuesday, or Tuesday with a CH, as they say in Australia. So yeah, this Tuesday, we are having Daisy on. Normal Rossifari interview. It's going to be an amazing time. And then on Thursday, which I think they say with a TH, not a CH in Australia, I'm going to be appearing on the Trainer Talks and Tales podcast. So you need to go and subscribe right now and make sure you're following their Instagram and everything and support this incredible podcast. And then you'll get to hear them interviewing me. And we talk about all kinds of really interesting stuff, including what I think zoos are doing really well, what I would like to see zoos do better, and what my experience has been like as a podcaster at zoos. But I think in a different way than I've ever really talked about before. So I'm excited to share that with y'all. Then those two are going to be co-hosting Zoo News with me on Friday. And then the Tuesday following, 1 week from the day this episode drops, I will have Tess here on Rossifari. And that was an episode that went completely off the rails in the best way ever. I don't want to give too many hints away, but I will say that there is a game and it is fun. So if this is your first time here, especially if you are here as part of this collaboration, welcome. My name is John Rossi. I am, as it said in the intro, a professional drummer who fell in love with zoos and aquariums and the people that work there. And now I bring those stories to all of you. And if you're not following along yet, make sure you hit subscribe. Don't want to miss any episodes. Make sure you follow along at Rossifari on socials, at Rossifari Pod on TikTok. And thanks for being here. I'm really excited. So I think I should set the mood, because we're about to go into an interview. But as I mentioned, this is an interview with somebody from Australia. So let me see here. Oh, I've got it. There we go. That sets the mood perfectly, doesn't it? It is time to head on down under, mates. Okay, I'll stop with that. But yeah, no. Okay, I'll stop with all of this. And without further ado, here is my interview with Daisy Barrett. Enjoy, y'all.
Hi, I am very excited to be on this podcast, John. Thank you so much for having me. I am all the way across the other side of the world to you. And at SeaLife, I'm really lucky. I get to work with a colony of fur seals and a colony of little blue penguins.
That is so cool. I love fur seals. They are such amazing animals, and frankly, something that we haven't really talked much about on the podcast. And little blues are obviously, at least in the States, they're not the most common animal. So we will dive into all of that. But as I like to do, we're going to start off talking about you. So tell me what your journey was like. Were you a little animal nerd when you were growing up, and how did you get to where you are?
Yeah, I absolutely was definitely an animal nerd. But I think one thing for me was that I never really thought that it could be a career. I didn't understand enough about it when I was little to kind of understand that could be something I could do long term. I was very blessed growing up to have, parents that really were big advocates of travel. We spent a lot of time traveling to brand new countries. We went to South Africa, saw all the beautiful wildlife there. We spent a lot of time in the States. I'm sure you can appreciate, and a lot of people from America can appreciate, seeing the Shmoo Show and Animal Kingdom, and going to all the Disney parks was, massively eye-opening for me, and so interesting learning about different animals and the ability to be able to possibly work with them later on. But I actually ended up deciding to go down the line of criminology, which is because I thoroughly enjoyed CSI, and that is not a reason to go to university. I have learned that further on. Yeah, but before I did that, I was like, I'm taking a year out. I need to travel. So that's kind of where I came to Australia. So I was initially, I am from the UK, and I was there for 18 years.
Right there. Stop.
Yeah.
Stop. You're lying to me. I hear your accent. No, I'm kidding. You're not lying. But how did this happen? You have the most natural Australian accent. And I know that they're like close, but like, come on. Explain your accent to me. Explain yourself.
Oh, my parents would die if they heard you saying that I have a natural Australian accent. I guess I'm from an area in England which is called the Cotswolds, which I guess our accent isn't hugely strong. Places further north have a very strong British accent, which I feel like is not ever leaving. But my accent from where I'm from is quite mellow. But saying that, coming over here, it definitely still has times where it comes back. One of my favorite things about what I do is presenting. I absolutely love talking to people. I love presenting on a microphone. I used to present big shows at my previous zoological facility, and now I get to do that with seals here. And I definitely get a lot of feedback. Hey, has anyone ever told you that you sound really British when you present? And I'm like, oh, that's so funny. I think because I pronounce everything correctly and I speak the Queen's English when I need to.
Oh, nice, nice.
Yeah, and then also, if I drink a bottle of wine, you will know that I'm British, that's for sure.
That's amazing. Okay, so I'm sorry I had to interrupt, but that was just so funny to me. But yeah, so getting back into it, so you were in the UK for 18 years, you said? Hear you right?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, 18 years. And then I wanted to travel. So I actually ended up traveling whilst playing sport. So I loved playing netball growing up, ended up joining a netball team in Brisbane in Australia.
Sorry, what is netball?
I actually was wondering if you would have any idea what I just said.
No clue.
No. Okay, well, Google it. It's a fantastic sport, but I don't think it's played in America. So it's fair that you don't know.
Okay, fair.
But it's a lot of fun. And it was kind of a good way to travel with not feeling like I'm completely lost and not really sure what I'm doing. So I met some great friends doing that. Also met my husband now, which was 11 years ago. So thought it'd be fun for just a couple of months, and then, came straight back here 6 weeks later, and I've been here ever since. So nearly 11 years I've been in Australia now.
Wow. All right, cool. And you've been married for almost a year now.
Yeah.
So that's exciting. Congrats on the almost anniversary.
Thank you.
And so tell me, what made him take so long to... No, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding.
8 years it took.
Oh, boy, if y'all had seen the eyes when I said that started as a joke, but this could just become a therapy session. But we'll skip that. And
yeah.
So you were interested in becoming a CSI agent, and then you went to Australia and became an animal person instead. When was the switch? When were you like, wait, this is what I want to do?
I feel like I never really wanted to do criminology. I think at school in England, it was very push that if you didn't go to university, what else were you planning on doing? So I think I felt very pressured to just have an interest in something and go ahead with that. And I think that's probably why I was so interested in taking a year off, because I really wasn't that passionate about what I wanted to do. And then coming over here, I was blown away by the Australian wildlife. So much of the Australian wildlife here is endemic, so it's only found in Australia, and we're so lucky with that. So I actually just started volunteering at Lone Pine Koala Sanctuary, which is where my co-host of our podcast works now, and where we met 10 years ago now, I guess. And that was amazing. It gave me really great insight into what a zookeeper does, what our role entails, so much more than cuddling animals, a lot of husbandry work, a lot of hard work, but it also gave me a great opportunity to learn a whole lot more about animals, and I guess their roles that they play within zoos and aquariums. And then I really wanted to get a little bit more experience with exotic wildlife, I guess. So I ended up applying to volunteer at Australia Zoo, which is just about an hour north of Lone Pine, and they have a slightly larger variety of species. So that was great. I got to work a lot with African animals, tigers, more birds, reptiles as well. So that gave me a great oversight of different species. And then we actually ended up going back home to the UK for a year. And that's when I got my first paid keeping job. So it took a little while, but I'm sure, you're probably aware that it can take a little while in the US as well.
Oh,
a lot of free time that's put in to get to where you can be. So I love that. Wouldn't have changed it for the world. I learned so much from that volunteering and built really good connections with people too. And I came back to England, and actually my first paid job was at a little farm park. So I got to work with cows and sheep and goats, and it was the best thing ever. I drove a little tractor around, which was so much fun. And then eventually I managed to get into a zoological facility. It was a really small one. It primarily specialized in different crocodilian species. So there was about 4 keepers that worked in the whole facility.
Oh, wow.
So when I say small, it was, really small. And I was lucky enough to work across the mammals and birds section. So otters, tamarins, owls, macaws, meerkats, which was great fun. So I honestly owe a lot to that job. I feel like it was small. I learned so much about myself, what I wanted to be, animals in general, started learning a lot more about veterinary medical stuff, and just really basic understanding of husbandry and being able to apply what I've learned from my volunteering into an actual role. So really grateful for that experience that I had there.
That's really cool. You mentioned that you wanted to get into exotics a little bit more, and it kind of got me thinking, but the things that you consider exotics probably include a lot of things that we don't really consider that over in the US, and vice versa. Like, to us, a kangaroo is an exotic, and I'm guessing y'all don't feel that way. A koala is probably not that exotic at a koala sanctuary. But I don't know, it just kind of popped into my head that it was like, I bet a lot of the animals that I'm very used to are things that you would consider in the world of exotics.
Yeah, absolutely. And we probably take them for granted. And I'm not going to lie, kangaroos are one of my favorite animals to this day. Like, I've lived in this country for 11 years. You can ask anyone, every single time I see a kangaroo, my phone is out. I'm taking at least 85 photos of that kangaroo. They are just one of the coolest animals, I think, that we have. And so lucky to have them here in Australia.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love a lot of U.S. zoos have kangaroo walkabouts, because we have to call it a walkabout because that sounds vaguely Australian, and that's how advertising works. But you can go in and you can walk right up to them and hang out with them. And I've had the pleasure. One of the coolest things that I've gotten to do probably is I had a little Joey that I got to hold in a pouch, and it was just a really cool experience to connect with this little animal. And
that's
it was
so special.
It was at the time when we had to wear masks because of COVID, and it reached up and bit my mask off, and it was the cutest thing ever. I have a video of it. I've posted it before. I'll have to post it again when we put this out.
Yes, please do.
Adorable, and I just love it so much. So
yeah, wow, that's so cool. Yeah, they're really cool species, and I particularly love the red kangaroos. They're generally found a little bit more inland, not necessarily on our coastlines. A little bit of a different fur, I guess. They're a little bit more dense fur coat and massive. Like, these things are stacked. They're cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they're so cool.
That's awesome. Cool. So let's talk a little bit about kind of what your current job is and the animals that you're taking care of there. So you're at SeaLife, right? And that is part of the SeaLifes. It is a global company, and we've had SeaLife Arizona on before, and
amazing,
have very good friend there. Actually, I have many very good friends there. But I really like the vibe of this idea of kind of a for lack of a better word, a chain, but like one that does really good work and is really careful and puts husbandry and training, very on top of things. I'm curious what your facility looks like and is like, because a lot of the SeaLifes in the US are like based in malls and stuff. And I'm curious if y'all are the same thing or if it's something different or how that works.
Yeah, so we are insanely lucky with our location. So we are based on the Sunshine Coast. So if I was to walk out of the aquarium, take a left, walk maybe 10 meters, I'd be standing on a sandy beach, in a beautiful blue ocean. So we are right on the coastline, which is amazing. We're surrounded by lovely little restaurants, bars, coffee shops, amazing donut places that we go to every day.
All right,
yeah,
wait.
Really
I didn't know
lucky.
that like Australia had like hoppin' donut places. I didn't. That's a thing.
Like, so good.
Oh my gosh,
some of the best donuts. Yeah,
that's amazing.
And it's literally a stone's throw away from work, which is dangerous for us, but it's lovely. So we're really lucky. So even the fact that we are so close to the beach isn't just lovely for us to be able to walk over, but all of our life support systems are filtrated through the saltwater from the ocean because it's literally across the road. So all of our habitats are saltwater. Yeah, which we're really lucky that we can have that there.
Wow. And is it a like standalone facility, or is it connected to other things, or how does that work?
No, it's completely standalone. So we have, a fairly large variety of different species. So most of the time our facility is split into two different, animal groups. So we have the seals and the penguins, which is where I work. And then we have an amazing back of house team that look after all of the fish, the corals, the sharks, everything else that lives in an aquarium.
Very cool. Do you guys have any sea turtles?
We do. We have an amazing rehabilitation kind of setup. So based, I guess, on our location, we see a lot of sea turtles come in from the wild. So we get a lot of them come through our rehabilitation centre. We're also very lucky to be close to Australia Zoo, which is only about an hour away from us. And they have a really impressive wildlife hospital. So a lot of the sea turtles go straight to Australia Zoo Wildlife Hospital, where they get a lot of rehabilitation care. And then once they're kind of ready to get them, they're on the way back out to the ocean, they come to us. We'll make sure they're feeding correctly, they're moving well, everything is going well. We have a beautifully big ocean tunnel, which allows them lots of space to swim. We can observe them. I say we, the amazing turtle team, observes them, make sure they're nice and healthy, and then we can, walk down the road and release them straight off the beach, which is really cool. I've been lucky enough to watch that a couple of times. Nothing beats that.
That's amazing. So I have my big four animals, and I know you listen, so you probably know this, but red pandas, binturongs, tree kangaroos, and sea turtles. And sea turtles were like the OG. Sea turtles are why I fell in love with all of this stuff and why I'm here. And I've been over the years trying to get as many different things about sea turtles, and experience them. So I have not only done episodes with aquariums that have sea turtles and learned about them, but I have gone out with Marine Lab and gone and marked off sea turtle nests on beaches and seen sea turtle eggs. And I've gone out and seen sea turtles in the wild in Los Angeles. There's this area where you can actually see sea turtles right basically in the city. They go into a river a little bit. It's a very strange thing. And I so badly want like the end of this series, so to speak, to be like attending a release. I think I would lose it if I was at a release. It
is so beautiful to see. And another reason why you need to come to Australia. It's definitely easy to be a part of that. We release a lot of them. And somewhere I definitely recommend visiting is Lady Elliot Island, which I had the pleasure of going to a couple of years ago. And it's a beautiful island in the middle of the Great Barrier Reef, surrounded by sea turtles. And you can just swim with them. It's really shallow. The corals there are really flourishing, and you just see them munching away on the corals. And it's pretty incredible.
That's
I have to
awesome.
send you some videos.
Oh my gosh, yes, please do. Also, it's just amazing to hear you say the words that the corals are thriving, because that's not really a thing right now.
Okay. So definitely not all of Great Barrier Reef, that's for sure. Unfortunately, a lot of it is still very threatened. But yeah, Lady Elliot was pretty impressive to see such a diversity.
Oh, that's awesome. That gives me so much hope. It's
hopefully
cool to hear that kind of thing. Very cool. I have this bad habit on my podcast of being like, cool, you take care of these animals, so let me ask you about different ones. Sorry that you had to go through that.
No, not at all.
I just really like sea turtles is all. But yeah.
How can you not?
Right? I know, seriously. All right. So let's talk about fur seals, because I have the feeling that a lot of people listening might not know that term. So can you give just a basic kind of description and idea of what a fur seal is?
Yeah, definitely. So fur seals are part of the pinniped family, so part of the seal family. And they're part of the group of seals, which we call the Otaridae family, or the eared seal. And that just separates them from the true seals. Easiest way to identify them is that they have little external ear flaps, which the true seals don't, which is why they are called eared seals. So a lot of sea lions fall into that, your beautiful Californian sea lions, and our Australian sea lions as well. Fur seals get their name, I guess, from that really dense fur coat. It's a little difficult to see when you're quite close to them. Obviously, when they're wet, it's quite hard. But they actually have the second densest fur coat out of any animal in the animal kingdom, only second to the sea otter. So
seriously?
Yeah, it's really impressive. So it's pretty cool. We love demonstrating that in our presentations daily to show just how dense that fur coat is.
Very cool. And yeah, I've seen fur seals, and I kind of thought they seemed more sea lion-y to me because of the ear flaps. So that makes sense. What kind of work do you do with them? First of all, we'll talk about behind the scenes, but like publicly, like when somebody comes and sees a presentation, what are they going to see?
Yeah, so we are lucky enough to have 6 fur seals in our habitats at the moment. So we've got long-nosed fur seals. We've got 4 beautiful long-nosed fur seals, or what previously were referred to as New Zealand fur seal, but they are all around Australia as well. And then we've got an Australian fur seal and a sub-Antarctic fur seal as well. So 5 out of 6 of our animals are rescued animals. So a lot of them came in with eye injuries, and our habitat is thankfully covered with quite a lot of shade cloth. So it's a really desirable facility for animals that come in with eye issues, because we can protect their eyes from that direct sunlight. So our presentations we do throughout the day, we offer the animals numerous training sessions as well. So it's not just within presentations or interactives. Most of the time within a presentation, we'll have 3 animals out. And like I said, we change that every single presentation. We have different trainers presenting, different animals participating in different parts of that presentation. A lot of our presentations is based on the animal's agility, what features our animals have, and obviously the really important role that they play in our ecosystems and how we can protect them out in the wild. And then we also offer numerous interactives. So we do seal swims, seal encounters, seal photos too. So every day is a little bit different. But I'd say probably one of my favorite part of our day, I love presenting. Don't get me wrong, it's definitely the favorite thing. But I love the seal swims. It's a really unique interaction where you can jump in the water. There's no food involved. So they're not under stimulus control. They're completely in their own habitat, their free time. And we just jump in with a few guests and we allow them to swim amongst the seals. They can just watch them doing whatever they're getting up to that time of day. So yeah, I think swimming amongst them is, easily my favorite part of what I do.
It is so fascinating to me that it is not like a train food, kind of behavior, that they just get to be fur seals. And then you get, do they interact with the guests much, or do they leave them alone, or does it change day to day? What is that like for those people?
They really don't interact with the guests or with us directly. We have a couple of them that have been conditioned to participate in enrichment if they choose to. So one of our favorite enrichment items is really simple, like a little blue bungee toy. But Saturday, one of our long-nosed fur seals, she absolutely loves chewing on that. So she'll play along with that. And that just, is a great talking point for guests. We can bring guests a little bit closer to her and we can point out different features of the seals. But they don't necessarily interact or seek out guest attention, which I love. I think, they're swimming around, whether they're on land or in the water, it's completely up to them. And guests can just be a part of that seal's experience for a short amount of time.
That is so beautiful. I love that so much.
Yeah, it's pretty special.
Pinnipeds are very important to me, and over the last couple of years, I have met two walrus and I don't know, a couple of seals and a couple of California sea lions. Actually, a bunch of California sea lions. It's always fun to play with them, and I've gotten to have these fun, go out and be the trainer kind of moments and work with the sea lions. But the idea of just kind of existing with them and being in the water with them sounds brilliant and beautiful, and wow,
it's so peaceful, and it's amazing. And I'm so jealous that you have met a walrus. I'm actually going to SeaWorld Abu Dhabi at the end of the year, which I'm so excited for.
Oh, that's
just
so
to see
cool.
that walrus. Yeah, I'm
nice.
like, I have to meet a walrus.
Yeah, I did not know that was going to be a thing when I started this podcast. Like, there are many things that have surprised me, and meeting a walrus was up near the top of the list of just being like, oh, I'm hanging out with this incredible animal, and there were two of them. But yeah, I could not believe that was my life in that moment. They're amazing animals. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely a bucket list animal for me, that's for sure.
That's so cool. When you travel, since you like to travel so much and stuff, do you like reach out to facilities or try to find keepers and say like, hey, I'm here, I'm in the industry, can I come and do things? Or do you just go as a tourist?
No, absolutely. It's one of my favorite things about this industry is it's such a welcoming community. We have, different Facebook groups or different ways of contacting. Social media these days is amazing. I feel like I have great friendships with people that I've never met. And I love that so much. So you get to ask different questions and reach out to different people about facilities and training or what's happening with them. So definitely utilize that every time I go back to the UK. I'm like, where can I visit? I had the pleasure of last year that I went back. We went to Chessington World of Adventures, and they have an amazing sea lion team there. So I got to hang out with Kelly and a couple of her amazing seals. So that was great. SeaWorld, I'm going to at the end of the year, Abu Dhabi. So I've got a couple of people there that I'm hoping to reach out to. And that just falls back likewise. Every time that we have someone reach out to us, I absolutely want to make sure that we can try and do what we can for them at our facilities too. Because, we're all in it together, and it's so important that we share our passion and share our different animals and share our different teachings. So yeah, definitely. I think it's really important. I love doing it. I'm not afraid to definitely ask the question.
That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, no, as somebody who's like inside the world, but also not, I'm always in this weird place where I'm like, oh, I want to reach out. And sometimes I feel like I should. And sometimes I feel like they're going to be like, who are you? And I don't know. It's very weird, but I've had, hundreds of amazing animal encounters at this point, and every one of them is super meaningful, super important, and just animals are the best. It's just so good.
Yeah,
I want to.
And like the worst they can
so
say
badly.
Is no.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
I want to. You
so.
are not making this easier on me. I know I mentioned to you that I have this, ultimate dream of getting to Australia for like 5 or 6 weeks and volunteering with tree kangaroos and then going and seeing all these facilities. And you're just making it harder to not make this happen somehow.
Yeah. And we were so lucky. Only last year, like I said, our facility is pretty much right on the beach. And we got a call that there was a fur seal just frolicking in the waves. So we literally walked out of work, went down to the beach, and we could just see them, a little juvenile, just swimming around in the water. So yeah, it was so special that we get to see them so close to us as well. So yeah, pretty cool.
That is amazing. I have this mental image in my brain right now. I know this isn't what happens, but that you walk up to the aquarium someday, somebody walks up and there's just like a little hand-drawn sign on it that says, sorry, aquarium currently closed, cute animals outside. And the whole staff is just standing on the beach, like watching a fur seal or a sea turtle.
Yeah, that would be amazing. I mean, it's pretty much what we do. We just take it in turns to quickly go have a look and then come back and do our jobs.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's pretty unique and it's great experiences too.
That's cool. So can you tell me about a couple of the fur seals, like individually, like personalities and what they like to do and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, definitely. So probably, well, look, we're not really meant to have favorites, but if anyone tells you they don't have a favorite, I think they're just lying. So probably Sly is my favorite seal. He is a long-nosed fur seal. So we estimate he's around 21 years of age. So he was a rescued animal. He was actually rescued really close to home, just off the Gold Coast, which for anyone listening that doesn't know Australia well, that's about 2 hours south from where I work. And long-nosed fur seals are actually the most common species found in Queensland waters. So it's not abnormal to see them swimming around where we are, which is really cool. And Sly actually came into care after getting into trouble with a cookie cutter shark. Now, I'm not sure if you've ever seen one of those, but I recommend Googling them because I had not heard of them and they look slightly terrifying.
I am pulling this up right now, by the way.
Yeah, they seem to latch on. It seems to be quite a common thing. I think you see a lot of seals or animals with injuries from a cookie cutter shark.
Oh, they're so weird.
So strange,
they are
right?
So terrifying. Y'all, Google cookie cutter shark. And don't Google shark cookie cutter or else you'll just see ways to make. But yeah, that is a heck of a mouth. Like, even for a shark, that's a heck of a mouth.
Yeah, and you can still see some of the scars on Sly's abdomen today. So he's been, with us, I'm not sure exactly how long, but definitely over a decade. So he's been with us for a long time. And it took him nearly 3 years to fully recover. So just due to that length of rehabilitation, the government and veterinarians deemed him unsuitable for release. And that's how he became, a great little ambassador for all of his wild counterparts in our care. Sly is at the moment about 140 kilos. During breeding season, he can definitely get up there. So he can probably put on another 20 or 30 kilos. Wow. I'm not sure what that is in pounds. Sorry.
Ugh. You, everyone else
big.
In the world. No, I know. Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
It's pretty big. But he is just a whole lot of fun. He has taught me so much as a trainer, and he's probably one of the lazier seals that we have. The minimal amount that he can do, the better. But he is such a great challenge. He's a great learner, a great teacher, for me. And I've really enjoyed spending a lot of time with him more recently, especially as well. And then I guess probably my other favorite seal is...
Wait, hold on. Before you move on, I'm just going to interrupt real quick. You said 140 kilos?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is 308 pounds, y'all. These guys are huge. Like, I knew they were big, but that's huge.
Yeah, and our largest seal, he is an Australian fur seal. So he's currently weighing in at about 190 kilos. Sheesh. But during their peak and during breeding season, there's no reason that they can't get, 250 plus. So you can imagine, Australian fur seals are the largest fur seal that we have in Australia. And they're, part of the same group as the Cape fur seals, which are humongous. So yeah, you can just imagine how big that can get. 250
kilos is 551 pounds. That's insane. Wow. Okay. I did not realize they could get that big.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Well, suddenly I feel better about my own build, but hey, whatever. That's awesome. Yeah. But okay, so tell me about your second favorite fur seal then.
So yeah, her name is Saturday. She's quite a new one that I've started to work with. So she is a whole lot of fun. Just like Sly, she is a long-nosed fur seal and she is a female. So long-nosed fur seals are sexually dimorphic. So it just simply means, you can tell the difference between the males and the females. Males grow about 4 times the size of the females. So Sly, hitting the scales, about 140 kilos. She's about 35 to 40 kilos. So she's a lot smaller, but she has a whole lot of attitude to make up for that, don't you worry? She was rescued just like Sly off the Gold Coast, and she actually came in with a pretty severe impact injury to her eye. So she's actually one of 2 seals that we have at SeaLife that have only one eye.
Aww.
So we actually flew a specialist over from the States, Carmen, who is a very widely used veterinarian, I think, in America for a lot of seal eyes. But unfortunately, while Saturday was at SeaWorld, they weren't able to save the eye. So she had that completely removed for her best interest, and then she was placed permanently in our care.
Very cool. Do you know why the name is Saturday?
I think she was rescued on a Saturday.
Boo.
I don't think it's...
I figured it was something cheesy like that, but I had to ask.
Yeah, I think SeaWorld named her because they took care of her for a fair while before we took her on. So yeah, I have a feeling that's where that name came from. Gotcha. But she is so much fun. She's the opposite to Sly. She's definitely not lazy. She is very keen to learn. She's massively based on relationships. So she's been another really great teacher for me and part of my career.
That's awesome. So you mentioned that, these relationships are so important to you and to the animals. How do you go about building a relationship with a new animal?
It's funny because we were talking about this quite recently at work and how different seals are to other marine mammals. I've never had the pleasure of working with cetaceans, but it's definitely something I'd love to do one day. And I think you see and hear a lot about that sort of relationship with people that they get a lot of affection from. So tactile a lot of the time can be utilized as a secondary reinforcer. Whereas I think for seals, And you just look back on their social dynamics in the wild, they don't seek that affection or that attention as much as possibly cetaceans do. And I could be wrong. I've not worked with them before, but that's definitely what I've observed. So I think it comes down to just spending a hell of a lot of time, putting in the time and putting in the yards to be able to build that relationship with those animals. And that's something that I'm still working on and still figuring out. I spent a fair bit of my time initially with the penguins, and I've just transitioned into seals. So it's still a very new, an area that I'm getting more and more familiar with, and learning just how important those relationships are with seals, even though they won't necessarily show you through affection how important those relationships are, if that makes sense. So I have a great relationship with Saturday. I work really hard with her to build on that relationship, but I'm definitely not in a position that I could ask her for a blood draw right now. And that's something that I will continue to work on and hopefully develop that relationship to be able to ask those more complex behaviors later on.
No, that's really cool. That makes a lot of sense. I love that it's such a relational thing. But then I also, I think it gets tricky sometimes because like it is a job and like people find other jobs or need to move on or whatever. So I think that is one of the more challenging thing for people in the industry, because like I feel like you constantly have to balance what's best for your career with like but I love my animals. So it's always interesting to see that balance,
Yeah, I remember hearing a story about, I can't remember who it was, but a lady that was working the seal, and the seal would only work for this lady, and she went on leave, and they actually ended up having to put a wig on other staff members so that seal would eat. And as adorable as I think that is, I think that's probably not ideal in the sense that you want to make sure that those animals are comfortable with numerous people for that reason.
Yeah, sometimes animals just choose not to be, though. I know a binturong that likes one human, and I kind of look like that one human, and the binturong also liked me and ended up crawling on me, which he's not really supposed to do, but he decided he liked me because I looked a lot like the other human, I guess, and so it's always interesting to see those kinds of things. I think you're right that it's not the best, but I also think that sometimes animals just are what they are sometimes, and that's okay.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Did you smell like popcorn after that interaction?
So I find, maybe it's just my nose, but I spend a lot of time with binturongs. They are one of my faves. And I find that to me, they smell like a stale corn chip, like a Frito or something, more than the buttered popcorn. I have smelled at a few exhibits like that smell very popcorny. But in general, to me, especially when like I have a binturong on my shoulder or in my lap or whatever, it's giving off corn chip vibes more for me. But then I also remember that whatever.
Such a cool animal.
Yeah, I know, they're so good. And then I remember that whatever it smells like, it's just their urine, and so then I just go ew. But hey, whatever.
Yeah, I kind of try and forget about that.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Awesome. And then you said your other, kind of main thing were little blue penguins. And yes. I just love them so much. I didn't realize until recently how rare they are in the States in facilities, because Adventure Aquarium, which is the local aquarium when I'm in Philadelphia, has them. So I'm just like, oh yeah, you can always go see little blues. But they're actually quite rare here. And they are an Australian animal, correct?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So they're native to Australia and to parts of New Zealand as well.
Okay, very cool. And tell me about the colony that you work with.
These penguins are the best. You talk about, like we spoke about earlier, about underrated species. I think sometimes little blue penguins are underrated. They have so much personality and are so much fun. And honestly, I have learned so much from our colony. We have a great team. Like, I'm very privileged to work with a really great team that has a lot of experience. So we put together a really great kind of husbandry training program for our little blue penguins. So we train them to voluntarily participate in pickups, crate training. They do weights every week. They follow targets. So we've been able to build a really cool training program with them. And they have just blown our mind. I think, we're used to working with seals where we can individually gate a particular animal, work with that animal. You don't have to worry too much about social dynamics. But suddenly I'm working with like 17 birds at once. So I'm picking up a penguin and that penguin's not comfortable. Okay, so to me, I'm thinking, is that penguin not comfortable because I've maybe stepped a little bit too far in my approximation? Or is it because Biggie over there has just joined the colony and this penguin I'm holding is not happy that he's here? So there's so much to think about, and it really gets your brain thinking about so many different things when working them, which I feel has been like a massive challenge, but also super rewarding to be able to sort of work alongside it and understand it more.
That's so cool. And who's your favorite penguin?
Oh, that one's easy. So last year was the very first year that we had a successful breeding season.
Nice.
And I was very lucky to be fairly involved in that, which was such a rewarding and massive highlight of my career. And the first chick that we ever hatched, his name is Ziggy. His dad is Biggie and his mum is Zeddy. So we were very original there.
I love that.
Look
so
at us
much.
go.
Those are all such great names, though.
I know. He's so much fun. He is really highly involved in training. He's really engaged with enrichment. He is very interactive with his trainers, which is great. He's easily my favorite penguin.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of my listeners know other penguins more than little blues. So what would you say separates little blues from other penguin species? And
Well,
if you say
tiny.
they're little and they're blue, I'm kicking you off my podcast.
I was going to say they are very small. So, yeah, they are the smallest of all 18 species, which I think is pretty cool. But they're also one of the only penguin species that spends a hell of a lot of time on land. So I'd learned a lot about, I guess, the different threats that these animals face, not just in the water, but also their threats on land. And that's been something that's been really cool for me to learn about. So they are nesting on land. They're coming up. They have the threats of foxes. We've got feral dogs and cats, a lot of domestic animals too. I've heard of them nesting under people's houses. So they come quite close to a lot of people, which isn't great. And I actually even heard this really cool story of little blue penguins in New Zealand. And there was a road that went through the beach and then their sort of nesting land area. And unfortunately, the road was obviously causing a lot of trauma to the little blues. And the New Zealand government actually just completely closed that road. And that is now little blue penguin habitat, which I think is amazing.
Oh, that's so cool.
I just think that is so cool. It's great to see that there's so much work being done. And I'm pretty sure they did a study last year which showed the highest number of little blue penguins in about 54 years. So really cool to see that their numbers are back on track. So yeah, I love anything about the wild and how they're doing out there. And that's something that I think is pretty special.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's really good news.
Yeah.
In my Zoo News episodes, I have a segment, conservation news, obviously. And I have to be careful sometimes because it can just all be bad. It can just all be bad news all the time. And so I really try to balance it out and make at least some positive. I mean, there are positive things, but sometimes they're harder to find. And sometimes it just feels like things are so hopeless. I hear a story like that and it fills me up. It's so exciting.
Yeah, and I really love that you brought that up because I think it's something that I definitely agree with. And I think when working with marine life, unfortunately, a lot of the conservation side of it is fairly negative. They're all hugely threatened by overfishing, plastic pollution, etc. They're natural predators as well. And we talk about it in a lot of our presentations. But with the penguins, I found that, I say they're threatened by domestic animals, feral animals. But because we've done A, B, and C, their numbers are now thriving. And you really get a different reaction from the crowd. So I think as important as it is to raise awareness about what we need to be doing better, it's also great to make sure we're raising awareness of what we've done well and look how well it's worked.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. That's very cool.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to tell me about the penguins before we move on to another topic?
I could probably talk about the penguins all day, but I would probably love to chat about the fact that I spoke about the training program that we did, and we actually recently presented that at the recent ASZK conference, which is the Australasian Society of Zookeeping, so similar to all the ones that you guys have in the States. And we put together a little presentation on all of the different behaviours that we've been working on, a lot of the cooperative care behaviours that we've done, and we were really lucky to win the presentation of the whole conference. So wow. I just think the penguins have done a phenomenal job, and it's absolutely hats off to them, and they've been amazing teachers for all of us. So feel like they needed a shout out for that.
That's really cool. And congratulations to you and the Penguins. That's amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
And so speaking of training, lovely segue, by the way, you have a podcast. And you're let's see if we time this out right, which I think we're going to. This episode drops on Tuesday. My episode of your podcast will drop on Thursday, and then your co-host Tess is going to be on my podcast next Tuesday. So that's pretty exciting. We go Tuesday, Thursday, Tuesday. I like it. Yeah. Lots of us all hanging out. I like it. So tell me about the podcast.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you again for coming on. It was such a great chat. So I'm really excited to drop that. Yeah. So the podcast started, I guess, Tess and I started chatting about it earlier on in the year and bringing up that conference again. Both Tess and I were really lucky to attend the whole thing. And it is phenomenal what you get out of a conference. The connections that you make, being around so many like-minded people, the stories, the passion, like you're constantly talking animals this, have you tried this, tried this? I just was blown away by it and just made me really proud of the industry that I'm in and what I do. And I think I've always wanted to do a podcast. I love talking. I love presenting. I've said that probably 100 times now. So I just said, I was like, Tess, let's do this. Like, let's just give it a try and see what we do and see what we come up with. Let's start off with talking to some of the people that presented at this conference. Some of these presentations have been amazing. Like, let's get them out onto a larger field. And it just kind of started from that. We were super inspired. Like this last couple of years, I've really tried to expand my own knowledge. I've listened to a lot of your podcasts. I listened to a lot of the ABMA, a lot of NEI, a lot of Zoologic stuff where they're just chatting and you're learning. Like, it's such a great current way of learning. And to be able to give that to an audience here in Australia as well is really cool. So, yeah, that's kind of where it all started, and it's been so much fun.
Very cool. And what is the name of the podcast for those listening?
Name of our podcast is Trainer Talks and Tales. Yes. And you should definitely check it out.
And how did you, good job. Nice promotion. Good job. How did you decide on the title, and like, what is your mission statement of the podcast, so to speak?
Oh, it took us a little while. Tess and I are part of a very close friend group. We've got 5 of us in the group chat, and we spent about 2 hours sending back and forth different names that we liked, just try and get different people's opinions. I guess we ended up on that. We kind of always wanted to talk about zoos and aquariums. We wanted to talk about conservation, and we also wanted to talk about animal training. So I guess that was the easiest way of covering kind of all of that, I guess. We want to get trainers on. We want to talk about them. We want to talk about their experiences, and we want to hear from them. We want to hear what they've got to say, and hopefully be able to inspire other people on how to get into the industry, different pathways people have taken, and different things that people have achieved. Recently, we did an amazing chat with a girl, Sarah, from Auckland Zoo, who she actually trained her orangutan to present a plush baby. And so when the orangutan gave birth, the orangutan already knew the behavior of presenting a plush toy. And so she continued to present this this real baby. And the trainers were able to take, full checks of that baby while still remaining with mum. And that was one of those moments that I'm like, I love what I do. Like, this is so damn cool that we are doing such progressive things like that. And I want everyone to know about this stuff. Right. I'm sure that's where you got yours from too, as well.
I hear these stories and I'd be like, everyone in the world needs to know about this. Like, how do they not? That's amazing. I've heard so many stories on my podcast, and just hearing that secondhand from you, I'm like, I'm inspired by that. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's so amazing. And like I said, so cool to know what people are doing around the world. And we just want to, get those people heard, and those amazing training stories, as well as conservation that's happening and research that's going on, and just a little bit more of, I guess, of an insight into the world of what we do and how to get into that if you're a new trainer too.
That's very cool. I love that. And y'all are a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun on the podcast. For those of you listening to this, I know I've appeared on a couple different podcasts now, and I always say to go check them out. And I have to say, I usually get asked basically the same questions every time and tell the same stories every time. This was very different. I got to talk about a lot of stuff that I have not talked about, not only on any other podcast, but really even on this one. It was really fun. Some of the paths that we took I really liked the questions y'all asked. I really liked the openness to discussion, and anyone listening to this on Thursday, go and check this out and check out that episode. But also, subscribe, listen to the other ones. I am a fan. I have listened to. I'm a little behind on podcasts right now, but I've listened to many, and I will catch up. Every once in a while, I go on an audiobook jag, and I miss a couple of weeks of podcasts, and then I have to go back and listen to them all. So yeah, that's where I'm at right now. But I have enjoyed everything that I've heard, and was very honored to be on it, and I'm very excited to now have y'all here, and now to consider you guys friends. Tess literally has messaged me twice while we've been chatting. I don't know what yet, but I haven't been looking at my phone.
It's like you're like a best friends or something.
Yeah, right. I mean, we love tree kangaroos, so we're besties. So yeah.
No, I really enjoyed coming up the questions for your podcast. I felt like it was a great opportunity to kind of go a little bit out the box and talk about different things that we don't often get to talk to. So yeah, I'm really grateful for you being super open about that. And yeah, we had a good chat. So I'm hoping people really enjoy it.
Yeah, me too. It was a lot of fun. Okay, so when I eventually make it to Australia, we're all going to hang out, and we're going to record some stuff, and we're going to have a big old party, right?
Yes, 100%. We're going to go Rossifari, Train and Talks and Tales on tour.
Yes, I like it. And Rossifari XT3. That'll be our cool name. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, I like it. So
that was cool. That was witty.
So I guess we're almost to the end here, and I've appreciated this time. But before we get to my last two standard questions, you mentioned your path into the industry, but I know that you're really focused on training, and that's where a lot of your passion lies. So I'm curious how you got interested in training, and also how you got good at training. How did you learn about it?
I think it kind of stemmed from, it's something I've always been pretty interested in. I think just looking back at more domesticated animals, and I was lucky enough to do a fair bit of study at school in psychology. So I learned a little bit about operant conditioning and how that works from quite a young age. I never really, understood how it could be put into animals. And then I started learning a little bit more about that with domestic animals. And then I was lucky enough to be offered a job at Australia Zoo. So I worked there for about 5 years. And that was amazing. It gave me such a great opportunity to work with such a variety of species, present, massive shows every day. But there was probably a little bit lack of training within that facility. And I think I'd learned as much as I possibly could within that area. I've always, been in awe of the marine world and the capabilities of the marine animals and what I've seen from different facilities, from social media. And I think that was my natural progression and something I've always wanted to get into. And coming into the marine side of things, I have just been blown away by information and knowledge, and realized that I really didn't know much at all. And I have now learned so much more. I think the marine side of things, and I'm sure the terrestrial side of things is the same, but I guess that's where my focus has been the last few years, is so open to learning. And I guess in particular where I work, I'm very privileged that they are very much heavily focused on learning and development. So we get the opportunity to go to other facilities. We've spent a lot of time at SeaWorld. We've been offered, obviously, the opportunity to go to conferences. We're put through different training programs. So our knowledge is constantly expanding. Our lunchroom talk is, how was your weekend? Hey, have you listened to this podcast? Did you see that seal doing this? And I've wanted to be a part of something like that forever. So I feel like I've learned a lot just from experience, but I also, take my hat off, and massive credit to the team that I work with now, who have put so much time into educating everyone, and we're constantly training each other up. We're constantly becoming more knowledgeable. And I think it's a great mentality to never stop learning. And especially when working with animals, there is always something new, and it's so hard to stay on top of it all the time. But, seeing the stuff on social media and loving the behavior month that ABMA are doing at the moment, and learning new things through that. So I think there's so many different resources that people can reach out to if they can't just rely on their facilities to be able to expand that knowledge.
That's awesome. And that's such a great journey that you've been on. I really love that. And actually, that's something that I think SeaLife is really good about. I know that they give a lot of opportunities to check out their different facilities and to go and do things. I have a friend who I would eventually love to have on the podcast named Kelsey, who, was at SeaLife Arizona. and then went to Bangkok and did stuff there, and is now in Melbourne. Just got there recently after I think spending a little time in Sydney, and is going to be part of the team there. And
Oh, wow.
it's just cool that you can go on all those journeys. It's really cool. So
yeah, definitely. They're really good at putting in a lot of time into developing the staff and, expanding their knowledge, which I'm very grateful for sure.
Yeah, that's very cool. So are there any conservation organizations that you'd like to give a shout out to?
I feel like I would be rude to not say something relevant to the animals that I work with, because there's so many incredible conservation projects around the world. But Seal Bay Conservation Park, I guess, is something that I probably would shout out to. It is on Kangaroo Island, which is in South Australia, so the most southern parts of Australia. They have probably the largest collection of wild Australian sea lions, which are a critically endangered species, so a species that are vital for breeding within human care at the moment. They tag the seals, they do a lot of research on those animals, and are playing a huge role in the conservation of them. So I definitely recommend checking out their social media. They have a ton of adorable photos of Aussie sea lions and little Neo pups too. So yeah, check it out. It's somewhere I'd absolutely love to get to eventually too.
Amazing. And then it is time.
It's time now, don't you know? We've come to the end of the show. But there's one tale left to go. You're gonna laugh and say, oh no. It's time for the Rossifari poop story.
Oh, I'm excited for this one. Okay, so this is actually only a couple of weeks ago. We have a beautiful chick. Well, she's not really a chick anymore, but one of our penguins that hatched out this year. Her name is Blueberry. And Blueberry it was a naming competition.
That's adorable.
Her mum is Aqua and her dad is Bluey. So we wanted some sort of like blue theme name, and we chose 3, and the general public chose that, which we love. It's a great name. She did a phenomenal job with mum and dad. They did an amazing job at raising her. Roughly around sort of 5 weeks is when we see the parents spend a little bit less time with the chicks. It's very normal, very natural to what we'd see in the wild too. So it's a great opportunity for us to graduate the chicks to our homemade penguin nursery. And during that time, we get the opportunity to teach them how to hand feed, socialize with us, and then start to integrate with the rest of the colony. One of the penguins' favorite enrichment things that I found is the most simple thing, and it's not a naturalistic thing, but it's something they thoroughly enjoy, is if you go on YouTube and you type in the cat fly app, and I think it's for cats, they chase a little fly around the screen. And penguins love it. They love chasing it around. We generally find a lot of the penguins are pretty engaged with it. And this is the first time that I'd introduced it to the chick. So I put my phone down and she was chasing it around, adorable. A guest asked me a question, so I turned my head around to answer the question, and then I heard everyone go, ooh. And I'm like, is everything okay? Quickly turn around. She stood next to my phone. And if you know penguins, when it comes to poop, it is pretty projectile.
Yep.
There is no longer a phone screen that is visible that is not covered in penguin poo. I was so embarrassed because there was about 10 people around me just giggling at me. And I was like, oh, it's fine. This happens all the time. So yeah, I feel like that's probably the most impressive poop story I've had recently.
That's amazing. I love it. Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
She's adorable, so I let her off.
Fair. Awesome. Well, thank you for taking the time to do this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for inviting me on. It's been so much fun.
All right, so there you have it, folks. Part 1 of 4 of this wonderful collaboration is officially in the books. I would like to let y'all know that Daisy and I did spend some additional time talking, and that audio is available exclusively to patrons of the Rossifari podcast. You can go to patreon.com/Rossifari and become a supporter of this podcast for as little as $3 a month. And then you will get to hear some cool stuff like the bonus audio from this episode and many others. So please consider taking the time to do that. Also, if you like what you heard today, please consider leaving me a 5-star rating or even a review. Reviews are very helpful, y'all, especially for some reason in the Apple Podcast app, but anywhere that allows ratings ratings or reviews. They're very helpful. So please, please, please consider doing that for me. It will help other people find this podcast. And speaking of finding podcasts, wherever you are listening right now, go and search Trainer Talks and Tales and hit subscribe. You want to keep hearing Daisy. You want to hear more of Tess, even though you don't know it yet. I promise you that you do. And yeah, I'm a big fan. So if you ever want something to talk to me about, you can message me and be like, yo, did you hear about this on Trainer Talks and Tales? And I'll be like, yes, I did. All right. So without further ado, my friends, it is time to say goodbye. So please always remember that the word credits backwards is Stydirk. The Rossifari podcast is produced, hosted, and engineered by John Rossi. Editing and fact-checking by John and Dr. Zoe Rossi. Our theme song is Sevens by Nathan Burke, performed by Nathan and John. Interrupting John theme and additional voices by Taylor Isaac Gray. You can reach John directly on Instagram and Facebook at Rossifari or by email at rossifaripod@gmail.com. Rossifari is part of the Daydreamer Media Network. Now, stop listening to me and go visit a zoo.